What player behavior can you really, really not stand? There are a few things that really bug me, though I don't think some of them are especially fair. Most obviously, like others have said, is not looking at their sheet or engaging with the game in general. Now, in my experience, this usually takes the form of someone not wanting to do anything D&D related outside of session time because they don't want homework. Which, again, I totally understand, but as the DM who spends hours prepping and planning on a weekly basis, the idea that spending 30 minutes checking on your character sheet every once in a while is too much to ask can really sting. Slightly less valid is players who don't take notes or keep track of inventory. The amount of magical items and loot that I hand out that gets lost to the ether can be frustrating. But also, it's a fantasy game, not a spreadsheet, so I get it to some degree. That said, there are a few things that really bug me that I know are not all that bad, and yet I can't help but get frustrated by them. Players that get grumpy at any amount of house ruling. Homebrew being asked to help run the game, like using a VTT, that's not just new player options. I know that learning new rules can be a lot, but I wouldn't be trying to use it or test it out if I didn't think it would improve the game. Players that create characters with in-depth backstories before they know anything about the campaign. Character creation is fun, and I get doing it in a vacuum. And having characters ready to go can make one-shots or more story-light games easier to jump into. But anytime there's a game where the world, lore, or themes are more specific, and someone just rolls up with a character they made 2 years ago and have been looking for a chance to play, well, it rubs me the wrong way. Now, sometimes it can work, but often it's a sign that the player is primarily interested in their character and not in the world, campaign, or party in a way that will negatively impact the game. I think the worst of all, though, and the one I feel most justified in, are the players that won't communicate or engage with efforts to communicate. If something bothers you, please tell me before you're too worked up to do it productively. If I'm reaching out to you about something game-related, please answer. I'm trying to make it fun for you, but if you refuse to actually engage in a conversation, we'll never figure out a way to make sure you're having a good time. Then, I'll spend sessions on end worrying that you're not enjoying yourself. First off, when people spend the first hour of a session talking about their week, sharing pictures of their cats or whatever, it's especially annoying when they show up late. We're not doing 6 to 8 hour sessions here, people. We're lucky if we get 4 hours. Then, there are the players who are overly cautious about every NPC they encounter, even though their PCs have no reason to be. Like, damn, you can't just insight check every conversation. I don't think this is very common, but in one of my groups when we start a campaign, nobody wants to share what class they're playing so they can reveal it during the first combat. I had to tank an entire campaign as a rogue because nobody played melee. It was honestly pretty brutal having to finagle my way into gaining advantage for sneak attacks since the rest of my team was like 60 feet away. Mine is when players pile on a check chasing a success. For example, roll perception. Low roll, you don't see anything. Next player, I look. Better roll, you don't see anything. Well, the next player wants to roll and you get the idea. Now this annoys me for 2 reasons. Maybe there isn't anything to see, which is something you should clarify. How does your character know that the original character missed something? My favorite retort that I've used is, your character is asleep, my guy. The players rolling are doing the watch. I am honestly becoming increasingly allergic to screens in general because they are worse than a drug to many people who simply cannot behave a minimum amount. And usually the younger they are, the worse it is. I have 5 full-grown adults around the table from 25 to 60 years old, and it's quite simple. The younger, the more glued they are to their phone, to check WhatsApp or scroll Instagram, not to check D&D rules or their character sheet, which I find super disrespectful. Last session, my two older and also more experienced players got super pissed because they tried to heal another PC in combat, but the player in question was either on her phone or chatting loudly with another player about something completely different. I fully understand their frustration. Players who don't give a shit about other players' PCs. I run and play at pretty RP-intensive tables, and we target a crowd that is fairly invested in both our own stories and those of other people. Not everyone's cup of tea, but we like it. But that kind of storytelling requires buy-in from the other players, and it's hard to RP a good character arc when none of the other PCs will engage with your character and ask them interesting questions or build relationships among the party. You can't do it by only talking to NPCs about all your inner angst, or by giving one-sided monologues that never acknowledge or respond to fellow PCs' input. That's a surefire way to unfairly monopolize stage time and screw over the other players. For this kind of story to work, everyone has to give a shit about each other. Now, sometimes we do get a player who just doesn't. They aren't necessarily doing anything offensive, but they don't pick up on cues from other PCs. They don't get invested in other players' stories, and they're only there for their own PC's arc. Damn the rest. They're happy to respond to another player's investment in their PC by monologuing about their own 10 pages of backstory, but they never reciprocate and help the other players talk about theirs. And it drives me insane! It's selfish, and it's disappointing because a good RP-driven game relies on give and take, and this type of player only ever wants to take. And everyone loses when that happens, even the selfish ones. A year or two ago, I had a particularly egregious encounter with this type of player behavior. I was playing a Sharan Asamar. He was playing a Cleric of Shar. My character had a lot of tragic lore and had never met another cleric of her god, so she was really excited to learn about the practice of the faith. The party had been through a pretty traumatic battle, and my Asamar was particularly spooked because of backstory reasons. So she went to the cleric for comfort and asked him about how he joined the faith. The cleric said, I tell her, in lieu of a proper response, ignored my prompts for any more depth or bonding because he had zero ideas and seemingly only picked Shar to be edgy, then immediately shifted topics to ranting about his own elaborate tragic backstory. My character tried to comfort him because she wanted to be friends and hoped he would be willing to help her too. Once he was done with that, he left the interaction to go try and hook up with an NPC, leaving my character crying in the tavern. He didn't even ask if she was okay after she had played bait for a whole horde of pissed-off enemies and got separated from the party for an hour, running for her life. Don't be that player. He later changed PCs because, I just feel like I never bonded with the party. They don't really care about me. Duh. People who make rolls that haven't been asked for. I'm going to stealth. I've rolled a 17. You, sir, aren't even trying to roleplay. You've just turned the game into an RNG-driven simulator. Describe what you're actually wanting to do, using more words than just the name of the skill, and let the DM tell you when a roll is actually relevant. Very similar, but a little less offensive, are players asking direct skill check queries. Can I make an X check? No! Again, you should describe what your character is actually thinking and doing, and the DM will tell you when a skill is involved. This one does have a few exceptions for me, though. In most cases, can I make an insight check is synonymous with, do I think this person is lying to me? So you don't really lose too much. Doing either of these completely takes me out of the game, though. Dice are a tool to give variety to outcomes, not a jackhammer to smash through what the DM has spent time and love creating for you to explore. Asking 1,000 questions! Just to make sure they can do something because they don't want the GM to know their plan. Here's some examples. How big is the room? 30 feet. In every direction? Yeah. And it's just a big square room? Yeah. Could I lay against a corner of the room? Sure. What did you want to do? Okay, I fly up to the top corner of the room and cast fireball so I'm outside of it. All that could have been one question. Rambling about what your character can do in the middle of a game. Running down a 15-minute list of all your abilities is not fun for anyone but you. So please, stop. Now, I'm guilty of this too. I don't tell the DM it fails, I still do the math, but I've also got a pretty good sense of roughly what DC I'll need to hit for various activities. If I roll a perception check and the dice lands on a 3, without other abilities like expertise affecting it, it's safe to assume my character didn't see anything. Also, can we just stop doing DC 5 checks? What a waste of time at the table. If a task is so easy that it's only a DC 5, then just let them succeed at it. There's no need to roll for something so trivial. If rolling the dice and getting a really bad number doesn't mean failure, then why bother rolling the dice at all? For me, personally, when talking about the low-ranking offenders that just personally irk me, it's gotta be meta decisions that take away player agency. I know it's usually a gut reaction and the player doesn't even realize they're being meta, but it always rubs me the wrong way. The most common offender? Catching a party member sneaking away through meta means. If you've set your character up to specifically keep an eye on the rogue, that's fine. But if the rogue has a problem with that, the two of you can talk it out. But if you've never kept an eye on the rogue before, and you and the wizard have been discussing a plan for 30 minutes, the rogue says, "Can I roll to stealth away so I can just scout it out?" And suddenly, for the first time in a 3-month-long campaign, your paladin, in the middle of a discussion, does a head count. Nah. Rogue is rolling against your passive perception, and you're finishing this discussion before you can even consider doing that head count. If you try to cut the conversation short so you can head count faster, I'm just letting the rogue say they snuck away 20 minutes ago. Not as a DM, but as a player. Players who do not chime in. On the table, out of 6 players, only myself, Rune Knight, and our Blade Singer constantly plan out the next move. For a while, I was conscious of this because every time we finish speaking, the DM asks, "What about other characters? What do you guys do?" One time, I was honestly thinking that I just talked over others, so I should lay off of it. So I stopped suggesting and planning as much. And then no one but the Blade Singer was talking anymore. Nowadays, I just plan with the Blade Singer since I know the rest of the party will not do anything outside of an encounter 90% of the time. Fidgeting disruptively at the table. Oh, I get it, you're bored when it's not your turn, but you can at least pay attention to what the other characters are doing and not say, I don't know, build a dice tower that will inevitably make a lot of noise when it falls, or yell out non-sequitur jokes. Or, in one case, keep tossing and flipping a knife after 2 people have asked you to stop multiple times. What in the God's name? Just be respectful to the people around you. If you're that bored at the game table, you can easily take a piece of paper and doodle on something, or yet, maybe play with a different group. The players who just want to hit things with swords and give 0 input into anything else happening and aren't even paying attention to what's being discussed or decided. They just go along with the group 100% of the time because they don't care enough about the role-playing and decision-making that is part of the game. These are the same players who usually aren't prepared at all for combat because, again, they weren't really paying attention. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and let me know down in the comments below, what's that player behavior that you really can't stand that just gets under your skin? And if you want to join our membership program, you can. It does help us out quite a bit, but you don't have to. You just get early access to videos, maybe some outtakes and other goodies too. We love you all. See you next time. Toodaloo for now.